You're listening to Girls with Grafts, a burn community podcast created by Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors, a leading nonprofit dedicated to supporting the burn community. In this podcast, we'll talk with burn survivors, share resources to help with supporting and improving burn recovery, and discuss how to prevent burn injuries. Here are your hosts, burn survivors and Phoenix Society's marketing team, Amber Wilcox and Rachel Kudlak.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Girls with Grafts, and happy Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day.
Yes, Amber and I are so excited to host a special lovey edition of Girls with Grafts today.
Well, I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited to introduce our guests. So too, we thought it was only fitting that on Valentine's Day, we have a couple of folks that I think are pretty in love. So I'm going to let them tell us for themselves. But Rachel, will you introduce our amazing guests that we have on our show today?
Yes. So first up, we have Dan Plexman, who at the age of 35, Dan was severely burned in a workplace electrical fire. It's been a difficult journey, but Dan feels being burned was the best experience of his life because he would not be a world champion arm wrestler, a professional speaker, a comic book writer, or met his wife without the experience of being burned. Lately, Dan spends a lot of time traveling across North America and Europe to speak about workplace safety and to compete in arm wrestling tournaments. He lives on a little lake in Ontario, Canada, with his wife and their dog, Kona. And then his lovely wife, Nasia Houvardas, is a fatal car crash burn survivor from Greece. Today, she spends most of her time in Canada, happily married to Dan. She became an artist by accident and decided to follow this path professionally. She is a North Greece Artists Association member and a certified art therapist. She is also a speaker, and since her accident, she has lived a more purpose-driven life by sharing her story to promote safe driving and to raise awareness about mental health and burn trauma. Today, they both join us to talk about how the burn community ignited the spark of love between them.
Welcome, guys. How are you?
Hi.
Hello. Hi, Rachel. Hi, Amber. Good. Thanks for having us.
It's very
Thanks
nice
for
to be
being
here.
here.
Thank you for the invitation.
And was I right to say that you two are definitely in love on Valentine's Day?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, definitely.
Well, I know a little bit about you, but I want our listeners to be able to hear more about you today about your burn injuries. So I'm going to start there. Nasia, can we begin with you and tell me a little bit about yourself and your burn injury?
Absolutely. Yes. I was involved in a car accident back in 2001. At the time I was married, not to Dan, to another guy that he was actually the driver of the vehicle. And it was pretty horrific experience. I got severely injured with burns on 74% of my body, 3rd and 4th degree burns. Came really close to losing my life. Came close to amputations. Like we all know the struggle that we go through when we have such severe injuries and burns. But the most important thing that shocked me and devastated me was that I lost 2 friends because of that accident on that day. So that was really very, very difficult to accept and go through all that, emotional acceptance and healing. So that was my injuries. I was in Greece at the time. So for the first 8 days of my injury, I was in Greece, but unfortunately they couldn't really do much for me except just wait, and that wasn't good enough for my parents. So they made all the arrangements that they had to, and they took me to the UK, and that's actually where my story of survival started, because that's where I fought and that's where I received excellent care, and I really, really am so grateful for that medical team because they did everything to keep me alive, and they succeeded. So here I am today. I spent three months in the hospital. I made a remarkable recovery. They were very amazed from the extent of my injuries, how fast I recovered and I got out of the hospital. Of course, I was in a wheelchair for the first 6 months, and it was a very difficult road to recovery. But I made it, and I'm very proud for that. So, yeah, here I am today.
And how long ago, Nasia, was your burn injury?
That was in 2001, so 22 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, she's got about 7 years of experience being a burn survivor on me. So I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot.
Next year, I'll be able to say that I lived half my life as a burn survivor, because I was 23 when I got injured.
It's funny because someone else on one of our episodes brought that up to us of saying, like, you know, I've been able to, and it's funny how we think about that, right? If I've lived half of my life as a burn survivor. So I find that interesting that's, you know, something you want to kind of think about. So that's fascinating.
I'm actually looking forward to that, because like the first years of our life, the first decade, it's just, we don't remember anything, or we don't remember much anyway. And we're not productive. It's like we go to school, we get our education, blah, 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 and we start our adult life, and that's okay. But it's really in the early stages of our life. But what happens after the age of 20, it's what you really do in your life. And that's, I was a burn survivor at 23. So basically, I feel like I don't remember my life before being injured. I really don't have many memories before. It's weird.
Yeah, like your whole kind of like in your adult life, even though you were over the age of 18, but your whole like independent life, you've been a survivor. So it's definitely something to celebrate.
Yeah, well, I was very productive from very young age. Like I was 19 years old when I had my own business. I got married at the age of 20. 23, I got the accident, and then everything changed. Everything completely. A different life, a different person, inside out.
Well, and before we dive more into that, Dan, can you tell us a little bit more about your burn injury as well?
Sure. I was working as an electrician, power linesman type electrician, working in a hydroelectric yard. I was in a man lift, about 20 feet in the air, and the lines I was working on, it was a live station, and I didn't make direct contact with those overhead lines, but I did come close enough to create an electrical arc, and that electricity overhead jumped from the overhead lines and hit the man lift and set it on fire. And I was just caught in a cage of fire. And I jumped out of the man lift, but I was still connected by my safety harness. So I hung there swinging on fire, burning and burning until my safety harness, it's a big, thick nylon belt. If people don't know what a lanyard is, that's what it's called. So that lanyard, safety harness belt, it burned completely through. And then I fell the 20 feet or 17 feet to the ground. I ended up having 3rd to 6th degree burns to 60% of my body. And I noticed when I say 6th degree, a lot of people don't even know that there is a 6th degree. And typically 3rd degree is kind of like the worst burns that most burn survivors talk about and have. But there are 4th, 5th, and 6th degree. And 6th degree is actually you've burned your bones. That's what it means. So my burns were very deep for 2 reasons. Electrical fires are usually extremely hot, like a lot hotter than the average fire. And because I was on fire hanging by my safety harness for so long, it was a time thing and a heat thing. So yeah, I was burned. I fell to the ground. My coworkers put the fire out, and I was put in the ambulance right away. Then flown to the burn unit, which was about 6-hour drive away, but we flew. And I ended up having about 3.5 months, or maybe just over 3 months in the burn unit having surgery after surgery. And to my regret, I left the burn unit about 9 months early against the doctor's orders. The doctors, they wanted me to stay for another 9 months at the rehab clinic and learn how to live life and that sort of thing, and continue with the heavy regime of surgeries that I was going through. But where I lived was about 8-hour drive from where the burn unit was. So it was a really difficult thing having my family always having to stay in hotel rooms, and just the geographical distance was a real problem. Plus, I just wanted to get out of there and go home. And like I said, it's a regret now, but I went home anyway and kind of figured things out on my own with my family. And I think that's a big part of how my PTSD kind of took over, because my family did the best they could, but they weren't prepared. They weren't trained. They were doing what they could with what they knew how. And like my mom was actually a nurse, a retired nurse. My sister was a PSW. My fiance at the time, she was actually a practicing nurse. And you'd think that they would have the know-how to do what needed to be done. But unless you are actually trained to work with burn issues, nobody has a clue on what to do. And with my anger and my depression, and I couldn't control my rage. I was angry. I was snide, and I made a lot of people feel uncomfortable, and I hurt a lot of feelings by the things I said. And but it is part of PTSD, and I'm not making excuses, but it's a process that people have to go through. And and like I said, unless you're trained, unless you're prepared, you don't really know what's going on. And I really wish I would have followed more advice from the healthcare providers, and I would have taken more heed, and I would have embraced the psychological counseling and the psychological and the mental health issues. I should have addressed those a lot more. But here I am, 15.
I was going to say, well, you're here today.
Yeah, exactly. And it took me a long time to realize it, but now I'm realizing this experience really was the best experience of my life. Like I said, I was burned at the age of 35, and I'm coming on to my 50th birthday this summer.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. So I'm at the 15-year mark coming up, and a lot of people they don't understand why I would say that being burned was the best experience of my life, but it's given me so many new opportunities, and it's forced me to deal with a lot of childhood abuse that I never actually dealt with. And there was a point in my recovery where I was having surgery after surgery, and I was festering on the things that happened to me when I was a child and as a young boy. And I don't know if it was my sister or my brother, but they said, like, what's going on with you? Like, you should be focusing on this next surgery that's going on. You should be like working on yourself right now and talking about your injury that's happening with you right now. But all you're talking about is the stuff that happened to you like 20, 30 years ago. And I was just like, I don't know why. It's just what's going through my mind. And that's when I actually accepted, like in my heart, in my mind, where I realized, okay, I need to talk to somebody, like a real professional. And I had about 3 or 4 different counselors, psychologists, until I found the right one. And
I think that's important that you share that message, because we don't always find the right mental health counselor right off the bat. And I think that can be difficult.
Oh, it's so true. I know it was a combination of personalities where I just had nothing in common with the first 2 guys that I was dealing with. But at the same time, I was so angry. I was looking for reasons to be angry, and I was looking for reasons to pick them apart. And then I found the right guy, and he didn't allow me to pick him apart. He didn't allow me to fester on things, and he just kind of knew what I needed to hear. And I consider my psychologist still one of my best friends, as I do with a couple of my other therapists, like my occupational therapist. I can't see him without hugging him. It's just how it is.
And Nasia, I know you talk a lot about mental health as well, right, with your recovery. And so do you want to touch a little bit about how you work to raise awareness about that as well?
Sure. Well, mine is connected. My mental health is connected with art. At the early stages of my recovery, even when I was in the hospital, I remember that every Wednesday there was this lady that was coming into my room. She was a psychologist to check up on me. So every time that she was there and I knew her occupation, I was just blocking her. Like I was not open to discussing anything about my feelings. I had everything bottled up. I put on a brave face and a big smile, and I said, I'm fine. I'm fine. When the door closed, when everyone was gone, I wasn't fine. Obviously. But it was all so new that it was hard for me to open up. I had to first digest everything that was happening, especially learning about my friends passing. It was really, really a very dark time in my life, and I wasn't ready or willing to share it with anyone else. Plus, when we were in the UK, I was with my mom, so it was just me and her, and I knew how frustrated and sad and worried she was, so I didn't want to bring more weight on her shoulders with seeing me not being okay and handling the situation. So when that lady came to the room, she was asking me, how are you today, Nasia? How do you feel? And I said, I'm okay. How are you? What are you doing this weekend? Where did you go last weekend? How's your family? Like, I was asking more questions and I didn't give her any room to learn anything about me. So at the end, they kept on coming. There were 2 psychologists, but they knew that they were not going to get anything out of me. They just knew. But I'm so glad that those 2 ladies were there, because they gave so much support to my mother that she needed that support. And then my mom could help me. And the way that my mom helped me was by introducing me to the world of creating art, painting, drawing. And it's a funny story, because at the end of my stay in the hospital, I won't say recovery because it's been a long process up to this day, but about a month or 3 weeks before I was discharged from the hospital, the doctor and the whole medical care, physiotherapists, and they just came and said, you know what, you're doing so well. And I was making a remarkable recovery, as I said before, but you are regaining movement to your hands. We need to keep your hands moving. And we know that we are not going to offer you physiotherapy every day, like twice a day, like we used to. So when you go home, you need to work on your hands. Just focus and work on your hands, So my mom came up with the idea, well, I'm going to show her how to paint and draw, and then maybe she will work on her hands. And that's what she did. We went, as soon as I got discharged, the first stop wasn't going back home. It was going to a hobbycraft. So, yes, we spent a few hours in there. We came out with all sort of different things that I might want to try, mosaic and knitting and embroidery stuff and weaving.
Yeah, basket weaving.
Yeah, well, that was in the hospital actually. And painting, brushes, paints, canvases, all this nice stuff. It was nice to focus somewhere else and be creative. And that's how I was introduced to art. And I know that the feeling that I got when I started creating something, that's that's where my emotional healing came, because while I was in the hospital, I was certain, I was sure that there was nothing that I could ever do with my hands ever again. Like, this is it. My life is over. Although I wasn't expressing all those feelings, or I wasn't putting the words out there for people to know and help me, I believe that in the core of my heart. I knew that I wasn't going to do anything in my life. That was it. And then when I first created my first painting, my first creation, even it wasn't really good, the first one, but I created something, and that something just gave me hope. Creating something from nothing, it just showed me that, well, you can still do things. And that really helped me. And that's how I started healing emotionally. And because I experienced all those beautiful feelings, I kept on working on my art. I kept on creating. I threw away a lot of stuff. I gave us a lot of stuff, and I don't know if they ever hung them on the wall, but it's okay. It gave me joy and happiness, and I just wouldn't stop. And that also gave some relief to my mom. I could see that she was happy seeing me changing my mental state, and that was another bonus on top of my healing, emotionally healing, right? So yeah, that was how I cured or healed my mind and my heart by art, creating something.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's awesome too, because not only were you having kind of art as a way to express yourself, but it was also, helping your hands and your mobility. So really got double duty there. That's awesome.
What I always say is that what started as a physiotherapy ended up to be my emotional therapy, my mental health therapy.
That's amazing. Well, since it is Valentine's Day and you're a married couple, I don't know much about, how you guys met. So I'd love to learn a little bit more of, how did you guys meet? You're kind of on opposite sides of the globe.
Okay. We'll turn this to Dan.
Okay. We met online, and when I say that, people are, oh, really? What was that like? And it's, well, we didn't actually meet online with the purpose of any romantic initiative or agenda. There's a burn survivor from Saskatoon, Canada. I really hope she's originally from Saskatoon, but I have a feeling she's not. But either way, her name is Kelly Boudreau, and she started a Facebook page, I don't know how many years ago, and I'd say probably going on 15 years, I'd say. And there's about 4,000 of us from all around the world on it. And at a burn survivor conference, she gave everybody the link for the page, and I joined about a year or so later. And then Nasia and I just started talking, and I had a girlfriend at the time. Nasia was single, and like I said, there was no romantic feelings at all. It was just strictly two burn survivors talking, like the other 4,000 of us on there. And over the course of a year or so, and I didn't have a girlfriend at the time because we broke up. I just want to make that clear. So things were blossoming and growing between the two of us. But Nasia lived in Greece, I lived in Canada, so there wasn't really much of a chance of us meeting, we didn't think. But then we were like, we have to meet. Let's just do it. So without ever actually meeting in person, we booked Nasia's flights to come to Canada for 3.5 weeks, and then we booked my flight to go back with her for 3.5 weeks.
Wow.
And so I picked her up at the airport about 11:30 at night, and of course, they lost her luggage. So, and the luggage didn't come probably for about 5 days after she arrived here. So when she got here, she had like just the stuff in her carry-ons, and
that was nothing. I've been traveling lots, and even before I met Dan, I was traveling lots. and I never had any issues with my luggage ever. So on my carry-on, I didn't have anything that I really needed for, the first, like no clothes, nothing. I just had my laptop, my camera, like basic stuff that I don't want to get, carried with me so they don't get broken, right? So yeah, that definitely broke the ice when I had to ask for, give me your T-shirt, something. I need to wear something. It was a funny day.
Yeah, I was like, no, you have nothing. I have nothing. Sorry.
Yeah, it was the first. I was stressed. I was really stressed at the airport, not having my suitcase. I had no idea. First time in Canada, I didn't know him in person, and no suitcase. I felt lost.
I'm sure.
At least it was summertime and it wasn't -30. So that was a sort of a bonus to the whole thing.
So you spent time together in Canada. You spent time together in Greece. Did you continue your relationship after that? And then, do you want to tell us a little bit about the marriage?
Yeah, that's like I said, we spent 3.5 weeks here, and then I flew back with her immediately, and spent 3.5 weeks in Greece. Then I came home, and I forget how many months we were apart, but
we met at the WBC in Rhode Island for the conference. After that,
that's right. Then you came back. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we stayed apart for more than 3 months. Since we started officially dating.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then COVID happened, and we went over a 7-month period. We only saw each other for about 2.5, 3 weeks. And we had already talked about getting married and that sort of thing before COVID happened, but it wasn't like on our immediate list of things to do. But it was just something we had talked about. And we knew, like, even before we met in person, like when she flew here and I flew back with her, we already knew there was something strong between us. And we just had to meet in person to check off all the boxes and make sure, okay, this is real. And it was. And here we are.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I love that you made it kind of work, even long distance. Dan, do you want to share a little bit about how you proposed to Nasia?
Well, that's what I was kind of leading up to. That's what I was leading up to with the COVID situation. Because, like, as I said, we only saw each other about 2.5 or 3 weeks over a 7-month period. And even though we had already talked about getting married, we weren't planning on doing it right away. But as I said, COVID happened. It actually, when COVID broke out, I was in Greece visiting, and I had a friend who works for the airline, and she called me from Canada saying, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "I'm still in Greece. Like, you didn't know my plan. You booked my flight." And she goes, "Well, you should consider getting home because of this pandemic that's happening." And I was like, "Yeah, we were watching that on the news. Sounds like it's going to be pretty bad." I said, so I was thinking like maybe in a week, because I had like another 3.5 weeks, because I was supposed to be there for like over 2 months, I think. Right. And I was only there for about 2 weeks or so. And she's like, "Well, you should consider going home." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, next week I'll probably cut the trip a little bit early and go home then." I said, "Why? What are you thinking?" She goes, "Well, you should get home earlier than that." I'm like, "Well, when?" And she goes, "Like yesterday." And then it was pretty funny because maybe half an hour later, Nasia's friend, who is a travel agent in Greece, she calls Nasia and says, "Is Dan still in Greece?" And she's like, "Yeah, but why? What's going on?" She goes, "Well, he should consider going home real soon." And it was the same answer, like when? Like yesterday. So next thing you know, within 24 hours, I'm flying back home by myself just because of the pandemic. And if I didn't actually fly home that day, I don't know if I would have been able to get back to Canada for about I don't know how many months.
Right.
But either way, so then we were separated for all this time, and I couldn't fly to Greece. She couldn't fly to Canada because we weren't spouses and with the
Right.
COVID restrictions. So it kind of put the rush on us to get married where, okay, well, if we get married, then you can actually travel back to Canada. I can I can go to Greece. And that's so I don't know if I actually proposed in real.
It was mostly like, let's make that step. Let's decide, are we going to go through with this, or it wasn't an actual online proposal.
That's the thing. We have this awesome love story and this awesome way how we met and everything else, but the proposal is just like
It's COVID's fault.
It's COVID's fault. That's right.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's
so that is not important.
No.
right.
There are other things that are more important.
Right.
Yeah. I also think it's because of our age and our experiences
What do
as
you
well.
mean? Am I old?
No comment. No comment.
I'm still
Well-
5 years younger.
Yeah. She just.
Well, I
had her
know we
40
hear. Oh, she just had her what?
her 40.
45th.
I shouldn't have said that. Sorry.
Why?
Just kidding.
I'm happy that I'm
Yeah.
45. I almost died at 23. So yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
But what I was saying.
No, go ahead, Dan.
Well, what I was saying about our the proposal and our situations, Nasia had already been married once,
Mhm.
and I'm like I said, I'm almost 50, and I'd never been married, but I had been engaged once.
Mhm.
It's not like we were 19, 20-year-old couple starting off our new life and still trying to figure ourselves out. I think we had pretty much figured out who we were, what we wanted, and we both wanted the same things in life. We just happened to be 6,000 kilometers away from each other. And that's the biggest struggle we have to overcome is the geography between us. But everything else,
Yeah, plus, we were definitely both committed to each other.
Committed.
Committed.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
To each other. So we didn't need this validation of being married and I'm for you. I'm the only one, or he's the only one for me. Like, we knew that. So yeah,
That's
we're
beautiful.
not rushing about getting married.
yeah, back with that committed thing, some people think that Nasia should have been committed for marrying me, but
that look that she just gave you. So, I think one of my questions is, after your injuries, did you both date outside of, other burn survivors? And what advice would you give to someone who's trying to date or beginning to date, and what that was like? And then, you just happened to meet another burn survivor. But what makes your relationship different? Being able to date another burn survivor.
well, Nasia can answer first because she was burned first.
Okay. So plus, I'm a woman and I'm younger. Anyway. Well, for me, relationships were really, really difficult. And as I said, I was married at the time, and my husband was actually the one that was responsible for causing the accident. So basically, my whole world collapsed in many aspects, not only from what happened, not only from losing my friends, but what happened in our marriage, right? The trust. So after getting out of the hospital, I returned home and I returned to a different person, basically. And we all know that when you go through something so powerful, so traumatic, it changes you. It really changes you. And I realized that he wasn't the person that I thought he was. And I was really scared of how he would accept me with my burns and everything. He was injured as well, but not severely. So he was in Greece. I was in the UK. We were almost 2 years apart. back and forth, just me visiting Greece as much as I could, but I couldn't stay away from the UK because of my recovery. So we drifted apart. And then when I came back, and I saw a different person, and I wasn't accepted. That really shook me back then. I wasn't accepted, although he was the one that caused the accident. So that traumatized me even more when it came to relationships. So I lost my trust to people, and I wasn't feeling that I would be ever accepted by anyone, since even my husband, that he caused the accident, didn't accept me. So anyway, it was a long and very difficult process of getting divorced and getting separated by him. It took me around 4 years to finally decide that, I'm not going to stay with this person because he's not the right person for me. And what made me realize that, it was having another health issue after my burns. So 2001, I had my burn injury, and 2005, I was diagnosed with cancer, and I'm well today. Anyway, I didn't receive support from him even when I had cancer. So it's like a switch. I just turn it down, I turned off, and that's it. You're out the door. I'm on my own, and there's no point trying out to save this marriage because I'm not getting anything of value. So we separated, and then from 2005, basically, just because I had all those feelings that I would never be accepted by anyone, since he never accepted me with my injuries, even though, as I said, he caused the accident. I just stopped thinking of relationships or anything. I wasn't dating. I was having fun. Like, I made sure that I had fun. It was always with friends. So I never looked into starting a relationship with anyone because I didn't have the confidence. And then Dan came into the play, and we started chatting. And as he said, there was nothing more than a friendship online. For me, Canada was not in my map. I would never even think of visiting Canada as a tourist. Here I am. So never say never, because you never know what the life will bring and who will your life and how he will impact your life in a good way. So be open. I regret not being open for all those years before that, because I really wasn't allowing myself to be accepted by other people, because I was so certain that I wasn't. So that really blocked me for many, many, many years. He
Well, it's
helped
beautiful,
me
because
get
I
out
always
of
hear
my comfort zone. And
you always
myself
hear,
more.
you least expect it, right? Love happens when you least expect it. And it sounds like that's what happened in your case as well. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
So your turn. Let's hear about your dating life before.
I had none. You're the first and only woman ever. Just kidding. But like I said, when I was injured, I was actually living with my girlfriend at the time. We both had our own houses. I had a rental house, and she had her own house. And I moved out completely of my rental house and rented it out completely, and then moved in with her. And we were basically planning our lives before I got burned. And we were talking about getting married before I was burned. And then after I was burned, we officially set our engagement. So that was the plan. We were planning to be married. But as I said earlier, I was just so angry and negative, and dealing with the PTSD issues. I couldn't have a relationship with anybody. Anybody that was around me, sooner or later you would feel my anger, and I would target you. It's just how I was. I was so angry. So I guess now that I look back on it, my previous fiance at the time, we probably would have ended up getting divorced even if I wasn't burned. We just weren't a really good match. And sometimes you don't really know that while you're in the relationship. And reflecting on things later, it's like, yeah, this is another reason why being burned was a good thing for me, because if I wasn't burned, I wouldn't have been with her anyway, but I just would have had 10 years of not wasted life, but life that I could have been doing something else, or just having the regret in that regard, I guess. So we broke up, and probably, I got to say, within 6 months to a year after us breaking up, I had another girlfriend, and I met her at my physiotherapy clinic. And I didn't really choose to be in a relationship with her. It just kind of happened. And I think I was just kind of taking whatever was coming my way in that regard, where I wasn't feeling lovable. I wasn't feeling good. But all of a sudden, this person was showing interest in me. And we dated for about a year or so, maybe a year and a half-ish. And that ended. And like usual, I wasn't a kind, caring person. I was just too focused on myself and just being angry. And I wasn't accepting the help I should have, that it was available to me. So we broke up, and then I had one or two other women that I dated along after that stretch, and I was just, yeah.
You know, it's all about those two.
Yeah. Can we end the interview? But it's sometimes relationships, people, they put too much emphasis on the fact that they're burned. And like, I noticed a lot of my burn survivor friends and myself, it's kind of easy sometimes to blame everything on being burned, where it's like, oh yeah, I'm overweight and it's because I'm burned. I'm angry because I'm burned. I'm this because I'm burned. And lots of times, if you weren't burned, you would still have all these issues. And that's why I feel being burned was the best experience of my life, because I was carrying around so much heavy baggage from childhood abuse that I never dealt with. I accepted it, and I thought, okay, that's just how my life was. That's how it is, and I'm going forward, and I've got over it because I don't think about it anymore. But I never actually took the time to seek counseling or to even tell people about this abuse that I had. And through the course of being burned, it forced me to go back in time and deal with all that stuff. And I'm realizing now, if I wasn't burned, I probably just would have kept on dating people and then having these relationships end, because I just wasn't an attentive boyfriend. I'm not, that's not like saying I was a bad person, but I was just focused on going forward. Like, I got to go to work. I got to do this. I got to do that. And I just wasn't really focused on being a good boyfriend or a good in a relationship. And that also could be a lot to do with age as well. Like, where you're a young guy, you're out there having fun and that kind of thing. But it's different now. I really like. After...
He's different. He's a really good husband.
Thanks. Yeah.
I should say, what do you love most about one another, right? Being in a relationship. I know you're survivors, but it can be, like you said, Dan, it's not all about being burned, right? So
no, that's what I was saying before. Like, Nasia has about 7 years of experience being a burn survivor, more than I do. And I've learned a lot from her. Even when we first met, like in 2016, that's when we actually first met in real life. And we probably talked online for a year and a half or so before that. So I knew quite a bit about her, and it's amazing how much information you can share online. I never actually realized how close you can get and how much information you can share. Like when you date somebody normally, you go to the movies, you don't talk for 2 hours. You drive from the movie, you go to the restaurant, you don't really talk all that much. You listen to music, you might go dancing, whatever, and then you go home. So out of like 4 hours on a date or something, you might talk for 10, 20 minutes. But we've spent hours and hours talking. And like I said, she's taught me a lot. And like, for instance, when we first went to Greece, it was summertime, and 7 or 8 of Nasia's other friends, all of us went to the Greek islands, and we just went beach hopping for a week. And it was really enjoyable. And I remember one time we were on the beach, there was a woman staring at Nasia and I, because the two of us, like, I have no problems taking my shirt off. Like from day one, like my scars, I've always been self-conscious about my scars, but I'm at the same point, I don't really care what other people think, because I'm taking my shirt off. That's just how it is. And Nasia is the same way. So, and we're comfortable that way. But at the same time, like I said, as I've gotten I talk about my anger issues, lots of times my anger isn't really anger. It's more of me over defending myself, where I look for reasons to defend myself. And now I'm going to attack you because you're attacking me. And I take it one step farther. And when we were on the beach, there was a woman staring at us so much, like she just would not stop staring. And then she's bumping her husband and giving him in the elbow and pointing at us and stuff. And I could just feel like it was like 46 degrees Celsius on the beach, and we're all sweating. And I could feel myself jumping up to 56 degrees, like angry. And I'm looking at this woman like I had laser beam eyes where I just want to melt her. And I could feel myself like wanting to go over and say something to her. And the next thing I know, Nasia stands up and walks up to her and says, "Hello, how are you?" And the woman's like, I'm good. And Nasia like kind of reaches out to shake hands. And the woman's like, do I know you or something? And Nasia says, no, not at all. She goes, I thought maybe I knew you or we knew each other. You were staring at us so much. I thought I'd introduce myself, or maybe we knew each other. And the woman's husband was just like, wow.
I have to say here that I would never ever imagine myself doing that if I didn't attend the WBC into 2014 in Anaheim. And that was where I went to one of the breakout sessions that they were focusing on how to react when someone's staring. And I remember it was Cindy and I believe it was James that they were running that breakout session. And I took so much information and actually ways of practicing what they were trying to teach us. And we also did a practice. Like I remember we stood in the room and we walked around and we just walked to someone and spoke to them and practiced what we can say. And that's what I took, and I brought it back to Greece so I can deal with all the staring.
I love that.
So that was actually one from Phoenix Society, and I'm so grateful because it made a huge difference.
It obviously made an impact on Dan as well.
Well, it's true because, like I said, it really taught me, because like my usual response to that situation would be like, "What are you looking at, jerk face?" Something like that. But
no swearing online. I have
jerk.
It's okay. No, but you learned something that day.
It's always better when you can make the other person feel
I really did. And, I looked at Nasia in a whole new light, and Nasia's other friend, Alex, he was there at the same time, and he saw the whole exchange, and he could see, and him and I had just met like maybe a day before as well. So I didn't really know anybody very well. I was the new kid on the block, and he was looking at me, and I know, and he said something like, just relax, Dan, relax. Nasia's a big girl. And it's like, yeah, she is. And he's like, she's a strong woman. I'm like, yeah, you got that right. It's a really great learning experience for me.
Yeah. Well, what you asked about our relationship, I have to say that we both bring out the best of each other. I think we worked as a great team. That's one of our
that's
strong
true.
points, I think.
Yeah, she knows that I need to simmer down sometimes, and I know that sometimes she has to get a little more aggressive. And I don't mean an aggressive where she's in a weak way, but she's just too kind. Like she tiptoes around everybody's feelings where she doesn't want to hurt anybody, and she always wants to make a positive change or a positive effort in everything. And sometimes I'm just like, I'm too tired. I've got a headache. My back is sore. Whatever. I'm cold. I'm hot. I'm whatever. I don't even know what I'm feeling. And she's just like, well, calm it down. Take it down a level. So we usually end up meeting at the exact halfway point, just because that's where we balance each other out.
Yeah, I think I'm the one that calms him down, as he said, and he's the one that gives me what I need to feel more confident in myself. So that kind of balances everything out, and that's what makes us a good team.
Yeah. And we really are a good team in everything. We love cooking together. We really enjoy having friends and family over for dinner, and we cook together like all the time. And
we do everything
I
together.
love that.
Yeah.
That's how I am with my husband. I never want to do something without him, because I enjoy being around him so much, right? And that's what it is to be married, right? Is to really enjoy that other person.
Yeah, it's true. Especially since neither one of us work full time. Like if we don't have to work, or we actually don't have to work full time, as I said. So there's lots of times we're home 24/7 for weeks at a time and months at a time. And we're content being with each other. It's not like we're missing out on other things when we're together. It's well, we're together. This is good enough.
Yeah, and it's nice because we both work on different stuff many days. Yeah, I spend lots of hours behind the screen of my computer doing my own stuff, and Dan is working away on his stuff, and then I will come and say, well, I'm taking a break in 1 hour, and he will plan to take a break in 1 hour and just sit together. You know, it's
watch
nice.
Watch a TV show or something.
Yeah, you pick the movie.
Yeah.
Well, I know we are coming up on time, but we have a few more questions we want to ask. I think the first question we really want to ask is, I know we hear it sometimes in the community, but what advice would you give to someone who feels like they're unlovable? And I know, Nasia, it sounds like you kind of shut yourself out, right, for a bit. But either one of you could answer this. What advice would you give to someone?
As I said before, just be open. It's not an easy process, for sure. I really need to say that Phoenix Society is what helped me open up, because in Greece, I haven't really met any other burn survivors, although I'm 22 years into my burn journey as a burn survivor. I only met maybe 4 or 5 people in Greece. Yeah, so it was a lonely place to be as a burn survivor. So I was looking for support, and I found Phoenix Society. And I just want to say to everyone, just receive the support if you find it, or if you don't receive any support, try to find someone that will be there for you and support you on your journey, and just be open, and the first thing that we need to do is accept ourselves, and it's a very hard process. For me, that was the toughest one, but I know we all say that it does get better. It really does get better. We just have to be patient, and when you find someone that's there for you and it's willing to offer that support, take it, because that can really help you. That can really help.
For sure. Yeah, it's definitely important to find that community. And, one thing I love about your story in particular is that you guys were just friends. You were just supporting each other as friends and blossom into something more, which really is, I don't want to sound cheesy on Valentine's Day, but is the foundation of a really great relationship. So, and like I said, since it is Valentine's Day, are you two doing anything special today to celebrate?
Well, today, actually, we're not going to do very much today, but we have plans to go to the symphony in a couple days, and that's kind of going to be our Valentine's Day excursion. Like today is like really cold. It's about I think it's minus 25 and really windy. And I don't know what we're doing.
Just a nice movie, I guess, and cuddle up on the couch and just enjoy.
Yeah.
And you mentioned before you're not symphony people, but I loved what you said, because I love this idea as well as a couple, is to just go out and try new things. And I think that's so important. So I love to hear that you're just going out and venturing together and doing new things.
Yeah, exactly. Like we were just in Portland, Oregon about 2 weeks ago. I had a speaking job there. And before I met Nasia, I didn't have any appreciation for art and painting and that sort of thing. I guess I had appreciation for different forms of art, but for me to go to a museum, especially an art museum, it was not on my forte. That it wasn't. But since we've been dating, I've learned a lot about art, and I've experienced a lot of different venues with that sort of thing. And we were just at the art museum in Portland and had a great time. And it's what Nasia wants to do, and I'm just following her around. But at the same time, I enjoy experiencing things that I don't really know a lot about, and it's just better that way.
Just like me, I never thought that I would enjoy going to an arm wrestling tournament.
Well, and speaking of that, I want to hear a little bit about what you're each doing before we close out today, and we'll be a few minutes over our hour time mark, but that's okay. I want to hear a little bit about both of you. So let's start with you, Dan. Arm wrestling, yes. I've seen some of this on Facebook as well, because I do follow you, Dan. But
awesome.
Tell us a little bit about what you're doing, and then we'll turn it over to Nasia and learn more about her art therapy.
Well, the arm wrestling segues very well with our conversation about trying new things and experiencing things and being open to different things. Because with my burn issues, my arms are really tight and they contract in quite a bit. So I've got braces, like splints, that I have to wear at nighttime, constantly doing physio and therapy and that sort of thing. And one of my friends who's been an arm wrestler for 30 years at least, I knew he was still active, but I didn't really know much about it. So I called him one day and just said, do you think I could come to your team practice and just kind of be like your warm-up guy and just kind of get my arms stretched out a little bit, and it'll give me a reason to get out of the house once a week. And, that's it. He goes, yeah, come on down, try it out. And after the first practice, I fell in love with the sport. The camaraderie amongst the guys, working out, having fun. And a lot of people think that arm wrestling is just a bunch of meatheads trying to hurt each other, like on the movies where the guys are guzzling motor oil before a match, and all that weird stuff. But it's a real sport, and it's kind of hard to be 6 inches away, nose to nose. Like, you're smelling the other guy's breath, you're holding hands, you're eye to eye, you're nose to nose. and you're trying to push him down. He's trying to push you down. But when you're in the practice situation, there's many times where you're holding hands and your coach is telling you, okay, stop. And you do this, do that. And 10, 20 minutes later, you're still holding hands with another man. And you're looking at him across the table kind of thing. And next thing you know, you're talking about what you had for dinner. You're talking about what their kids did the day before and what you did the night before. And it's just a really cerebral, enjoyable activity for me. And I just continue doing it because of the joy of it. And then and I'm actually pretty good.
He's a world champion.
I've heard. So that's amazing.
On both arms. Like, I'm so proud of him.
Yeah, it's great. I've only been in 4 tournaments, but every tournament I've been in, I placed first to third. And in both arms.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I just went to the World Championships, the International Federation of Arm Wrestling World Championships in France, September 29th and 30th.
And you won.
And I won gold in both arms.
Oh, yes,
this is one of my medals.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I actually got 2 of them.
Oh, look at him go. And you said he's good with both arms, correct? So that's really hard to be able to kind of compete with both arms. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's I love it. And
you're also a speaker.
Yeah.
I know. I love watching the Dan comics. I see them all over the internet. The Dan Plexman comics are my favorite. But I know you also do speaking. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that before we turn it over to Nasia?
Sure. I never wanted to be a speaker. I never planned on it. It's just one of those things that was sort of thrown at me. One time, about 3 or 4 years old. Yeah, 4 years after being burned, I took some safety courses because I was thinking about heading back into the workforce, and what else better thing to do is be a safety guy. So one of the courses was train the trainer, and I had to do a 10-minute speech in front of the class. So I talked about my workplace issue or my workplace injury, and after my presentation was over, the teacher told me to stay after class. And when we were done, he walked me down to the chancellor's office and said, this guy has to be our keynote speaker at our next safety conference. So without having any training, without ever wanting to be a speaker, I'm all of a sudden put on a stage in front of 500 other safety professionals. And I gave my first presentation, and pretty much every speaking engagement I've done after that, I've received another one, and the train just kind of keeps on chugging along. And it's a great experience to be able to share my experience with other people who aren't burned, they're not burn survivors. They're just regular workers, because being burned is just part of the story. A lot of the story is workplace health and safety, following safe work procedures and protocols that can apply to everybody's life, from school kids to adults. And that's how the comic book, The Plexman, came about, is where
I love it.
I talk to adults at workplaces, but I wanted to have an avenue where they could take home these messages to their kids and get safety into the home and teach our kids to be safe before they even enter the workforce.
I love that.
Thank you. It's really enjoyable.
So Nasia, do you want to tell us a little bit about your art? You're a certified professional art therapist, but you also work with other organizations on safety. Do you want to talk a little bit about the work you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Aber. Well, I have been speaking about road safety basically in Greece since 2017. I've been working with the traffic police and going to schools and sharing my story and trying to maybe impact them in a positive way. So when the children go out on the roads, they are more aware of the dangers, and I want them to use their voice so they demand their safety. It was something that I didn't do on that day, and I regret it. So I'm promoting road safety in that way. And I have been speaking to other communities and organizations, just trying to raise awareness on road safety and how important it is to use our voice and demand our safety. And lately, I have also been working on spreading awareness on our mental health, and I do that through a guided class of coloring. So that's what I've been using lately. So I speak about my experience of being burned.
Yeah, I have to interrupt. I had a speaking job in the fall, and they were looking to fill one of the time slots. And they actually said, yeah, if we could find something artistic to add to this conference, it would be great. And I'm like, oh, I just happen to know somebody. And Nasia taught her art therapy class.
That's
and
awesome.
One of the people in the conference, afterwards, she said it was so cool to have like 100 adult male construction workers coloring, and she was in some of them were crying. It was so awesome.
It was an amazing experience for myself too. Just it wasn't for me. I was intimidated, like having construction guys and asking them to color something. It was it was a challenging task.
I'm sure,
but it did go well, and I'm so happy that I tried it. And they followed all the instructions that I gave them, and my approach on these coloring cards that I have created is not just coloring and practicing mindfulness. It's just focusing your mind on a specific word. So my coloring cards that I created are focusing on let's say, for example, acceptance, self-love, resiliency, hope, all these different words. That's how I guide them. We focus on that word, and we bring out emotions and thoughts, and maybe an inner dialogue that will give you some clarity on what you're feeling on that specific topic. So it seems to go well, and people are enjoying it, and I'm so happy that I can share what I experience when I am in that state, when I color, when I draw, when I paint, which is totally a beautiful place and state to be, a state of mind to be. So I want people to experience that, and that's what I'm trying to do. So when I speak, I share about my accident, how I was introduced to art, and then we go through the process of coloring together. And as I say, it's what works for me doesn't work for everyone, but I want them to open up a new maybe way of thinking that, okay, coloring is not my thing, but I can find something else that will give me this feeling. So
the outlet.
I want them to find what works for them, so they can feel better and help themselves.
Well, and we will share both websites in our show notes to be able to let our listeners know how they can get involved and be a part of what you're both sharing with the world. Rachel, do you want to kick us off with our final two questions? Because I know we always ask survivors 2 questions. I hope you guys are ready. Okay. So
yes, we always love to ask if, either of you or both of you together do anything special for your burniversaries.
Oh, well, burniversary. To be honest, no, I don't plan to do anything special on that day. It's summer, and no, I just not something special. I try to reflect on the year that passed and just go through the day. It's an emotional day for me just because I lost my friends. If I didn't have that aspect, I'm pretty okay with what happened to me. I've fully accepted what happened to me. I have no issues with that. Accepting that I lost my friends, that's what gets me every year. Just adding one more year of them not being here, that's what gets me.
Yeah, myself, I typically don't do anything special, but over the years, there's been some years where I've completely forgot that it was my burniversary. And then it's like, oh yeah, it's been 5 years. Oh yeah, it's been 7 years exactly. And I don't think about it. And then there's also been other years where my anniversary is coming up and I spiral into a major depression for months just because of the dates and I was burned September 30th. So it leads into the holiday season, and the holiday season typically isn't a great season for me in general. Just because there's the family issues that I have with my family. I tend not to have a really close relationship with them. So a lot of times I've just kind of been a little bit more depressed than I should be. But the last, I don't know, I got to say 5-6 years at least, I've learned to recognize it, and I'm getting much better at recognizing that I'm getting depressed, recognizing that I'm getting angry, and dealing with it. And this last year, I was able to celebrate my anniversary the best way I could ever think of, because, like I said, September 30th, 2008, that was the day I was injured. And this past year, September 30th, 2022, I was in France winning the world championships in both arms.
That's a beautiful way to celebrate it. Yeah, definitely clap for him.
Yeah, we couldn't have celebrated better.
Well, that's an amazing way to celebrate. Well, my last question for both of you would be, how do you practice self-care? So what does self-care look like for Dan and Nasia? Do you do it together? Do you practice self-care separately? I know my husband and I like to he likes to play video games and I like to go get a massage. Do you practice self-care together, or what does that look like for you guys?
For me, it's definitely getting lost with my paints and my brushes in my art. Like I enjoy it so much. So that's definitely self-care. But when I see that he's feeling down, I'm putting some effort in trying to make him feel better those days. And he does the same with me. So spending time together is also something that we really enjoy and helps us.
Yeah. And with myself and self-care, I think the biggest part of it is recognizing that I'm starting to spiral.
That you need it.
Yeah. And being alone, I'm a person, I really like my alone time. But I'm actually really good at being alone, where I'm okay with it. But if I spend too much time alone, then I start spiraling, and I don't really, and I don't realize it. Like I said, I don't realize it. So recognizing that I'm feeling down, recognizing that I need to put myself out there, that's the best form of self-care for myself. And then,
I love that.
And other than that, like working out and being physical really helps a lot. It's kind of like, if you want to change your state of mind, change your state of body. If you want to change your state of body, change your state of mind. And you can do both. You can do both to counteract whatever you're feeling.
Well, you guys have brought us nothing but joy in this episode. So I want to thank you both for your willingness to be here today and wish you both a very happy Valentine's Day. You have been such a wonderful feature for Girls with Grafts. And with that, any final thoughts before we close out today?
I just want to say thank you for inviting us, and happy Valentine's Day to everyone out there listening.
Thank you both so much. We hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Girls with Grafts. If you are enjoying this content, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. This helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.